Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become the stepping stones to growth and clarity. Today's guest is Chip Scholz, an executive coach and strategist who has spent decades helping leaders untangle complexity. He's the author of the new book, Small Decision, Big Shifts. But his wisdom in that book didn't just come from a boardroom, it came from a life or death pivot. A few years ago, Chip suffered a stroke, lying in a hospital bed. He faced a choice: let this setback define him or make a small decision to move. He chose to move. That decision led him to losing over 100 pounds, fully recovering and rebuilding his life on his own terms. He's here to share how small intentional choices can pull us out of our darkest moments. So, Chip, it's a true honor to have you on FieldCraft. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ezekiel. Appreciate it very much.
All right, so let's dive in. Chip, you faced a massive personal crisis, a stroke that landed you in a hospital bed, facing a very uncertain future. So, can you take us back to that specific moment? So, what did that rock bottom moment feel like for you?
Well, I was teaching a class, and in the middle of the class, I had the stroke, and I didn't realize it right away. Finished up with the class, even though I really couldn't talk that well, and so it was an interesting time. I'm glad it's 13 years ago. But it was definitely an interesting time.
Okay, so what was the first small decision you made in that bed that started your journey back to health?
Well, the big thing is, that's the construct of the book is talking about the five C's. So it is context, clarity, conditioning, choice, and character. Um, the first C, context, is understanding where you are, understanding what your situation it is, understanding that I weighed what I weighed and was incapacitated and just had to come to grips with what my context was. The second was clarity and knowing that I wanted to get better, and I had to define what better was. And then conditioning is changing my mind, and choice is making the behaviors or the behavioral choices that lead to those big shifts. So it's all part of the decision making process. Character is what has happened over the last several years. It's losing 100 pounds and keeping it off, and it's eating right, it's taking care of myself, it's sleeping right, and all of those kind of things. So that's how it all fits together.
All right, all right. So can you tell us, let's talk about your book, Small Decisions, Big Shifts. So what was the motivation behind writing that book and who were the ideal readers you had in mind when you were writing it?
I've been an executive coach for 25 years. And over the years, I've come up with a philosophy of the five C's, and I it's a book that I always wanted to write. Um, but after the stroke, I wrote a couple books before the stroke, and after the stroke, I just wasn't in a condition or wasn't in a headspace to be able to write. And so, I started, I stopped, I put it in the drawer for about 5 years, and then a couple years ago, my daughters got me this subscription with Storyworth, and Storyworth is when they send you questions and you write the story of those questions. and then they printed in a book. And so over the course of a year, I wrote 60 stories, and it ended up being 411 pages. Well, that got me back in writing. So I dusted off the manuscript and put it forward. You know, what drives me is more the legacy that I want to leave. I want to leave behind the coaching philosophy that served me so well, so that's what I did. That was the drive to do the book.
All right. So, Chip, you realized that to keep moving intellectually, you had to keep moving physically. How difficult was it to, stick to that decision in the early days of recovery when you were exhausted or in pain?
Um, yeah, that's a great question. Um, it was just a personal challenge, and right after the stroke, I couldn't walk more than a block, and before long, I was walking 5 to 10 miles a day, and it was for the first 2 years afterwards, I walked 3,500 miles in 2 years. So, it was just that drive, and it's something, 13 years later, I'm still walking like crazy. So, I love it.
All right. So you went on to lose over 100 pounds. That's a massive transformation. But I imagine that there were, slip-ups along the way. How did you handle, the days where you felt like you were failing at that goal?
You know, I just wrote about this. As a matter of fact, I've got another book that's coming out in February, and I wrote about it. And it's not how you fail; it's how you get up. It's how you get going again.
Hmm.
It's how you
Hmm.
recover. Because we're all going to fail, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I just beating yourself up over failure is it puts you in a bad place. But
Hmm.
everybody's going to fail. I mean, we all don't work out the way we were supposed to, and so it's a matter of how you pick yourself up, how you dust yourself off, you know how you move on. Sure, yes, I'm sure there were times when I had that pizza that I shouldn't have had, or I decided not to walk, but it's just it's how you recover.
All right. That was a really fantastic response. It's not how you feel, it's how you get up. That's, it very much aligns with the core philosophy of this podcast. And
Yeah.
thank you very much for sharing, Chip. So before this, you describe yourself as a, corporate gypsy and a lobbyist. So how did, this health crisis fundamentally change your definition of leadership and what matters in business?
I left all behind. You know, um, I started my business 27 years ago, and and that was a former life. Um, so my ideas of leadership have been developed over the last 25 years. My ideas of leadership come from reading incessantly. Before the stroke, I was reading 2 books a week, and just and not just novels. I mean, just self help books and that kind of thing. After the stroke, when I was starting to be able to read again, I was fascinated by the brain and by the behavioral problems that we all have, which are, I was just talking to a client this morning talking about that, like a to-do list. You have a to-do list of all the things you're supposed to do. So you got 20 items on your to-do list, and 17 of them are easy, and 3 of them you really need to get done, but they're hard to do. So you
Mm,
get the 17 done so you can cross them off and feel good about it, but you leave those 3, and all of a sudden now it runs over to the next day. So, that's kind of crazy, but it's how we humans handle things. And
yeah.
and it's the discipline to change that. It's making sure that we understand how our minds work so that we can keep from falling falling under that spell. I mean, and we all are going to do it. Like I said, we all are going to fail. So it's just, how do we pick ourselves back up and go? But how do we avoid some of those traps in the first place? Because there's so many traps. There's so many. Yeah. So there's probably, I don't know, a couple of hundred cognitive biases, and a cognitive bias is like confirmation bias. So confirmation
Mm,
bias means that you're doing some research and you see something that looks familiar. And so you
mm,
tend to believe that thing that's more familiar than you do other evidence. So the other evidence may be pointing you in a different direction, but because that looks familiar to it, you go, oh, okay, and it fits, and you decide to go down an old path, and so that's confirmation bias. There's sunk cost fallacy, which is you feel like you've put so much investment and so much effort into something that you shouldn't leave it aside. And so you sink more investment into a certain thing, and you know um, you really shouldn't do that. But we have that bias in our head that says we really need to do it. So there's all kinds of cognitive biases, and understanding those cognitive biases changes the way we think about things.
all right, Chip, that was a really insightful response. So, how do you use that experience of physically rebuilding yourself to help executives who are mentally or emotionally stuck in their careers today?
It's all part of the coaching. It's all part of, I work with mostly corporate owners, mostly people that own family businesses, and it's experience. It's knowing when to ask questions and when not to, and it's knowing how to help people. That's really it.
Great. So, for the listener in our audience right now who feels paralyzed by making a massive setback, maybe a health diagnosis or a career collapse, and feels like they can't make any decision, let alone a big one. So, what is the single step, the single smallest step that they can take today to shift their momentum?
That is a great question. So, one of the things that I like to think about is if you woke up tomorrow and something had shifted, what's different? And you start with that. So if you wake up tomorrow and you know something has shifted in your life, something's different, whether it be health, whether it be a career setback or whatever, what would that be? And you start with that. It's really the small decisions you make, and it's the
Mm,
small things, because our minds don't really wrap around the big things. We
mm.
think we like big things, but we really like the small things a lot better. And so, it's wrapping our minds around the small things, and understanding what kind of a change, what it would look like to make the change. And once we understand what it would look like, we now understand a change in our behavior.
So, Chip, after navigating the corporate world, surviving a stroke, and coaching countless leaders to find clarity, so what does being successful truly mean to you now?
um, Getting what you want, um, and the problem with that is most people don't know what they want. The problem with that is that most people can tell you what they don't want, but very few people can tell you what they want. So, it's determining what you want. It's determining what success is for you. Because success for me is not the same thing as success for you. Well, it's probably financial freedom, right? It's probably
Yeah.
having the freedom to act and do what you want to do when you want to do it. Yeah, and I would imagine that at some point, if you really want to be successful, it's having a happy family, whether that's your extended family or whether that's a future relationship and children, if that's the direction you want to head. It is rarely, I rarely hear from people that it's the fancy house or the fancy car or the fancy boat or whatever. I always hear from people freedom, financial freedom, stability, great family, a good career, one that gives satisfaction. So success, whereas it is different for everybody, and the specifics are different, there are some pretty universal things that come about success. And so, that's the key in coaching, is to help people become successful in their own definition. Not my
Mm.
definition, because who cares about my definition, but it's your definition. And if I can help you get to where you want to go, then wow, sky's the limit.
All right. So this has been a really, a powerful conversation. So finally, for our listeners who want to go read Small Decisions, Big Shifts, or any of your other books, and perhaps connect with your coaching work, so where's the best place for them to go?
Well, there's a couple places. First of all, the book's available on Amazon. There's going to be an audio book, and that hasn't been released yet. We're expecting it to be released any day now. The other one is my website is scholzassociates.com, SCHOLZ and associates.com. And you can find me there, and there's email that you can get through to me on. So.
All right, Chip, it was a really great time having a conversation with you today, and I'm really excited to have you on the show.
I can honestly say, Ezekiel, that I haven't talked to anybody from Nigeria today.
Oh wow, oh wow, wow, wow. Okay, at least you got to talk to one before the end of the day.
That's right. That's right. I'm honored.
All right, it was a great time talking to you too, Chip.